tea time, fools.
Hey fools, T here with another one, and this one is talking about the premise or the misconception, the preconception that Nintendo fans don't buy third-party games. There's this preconception that is the case, and I think some third-party companies feel that way because they don't sell what they sell on the other consoles. They don't sell the units on a Nintendo console that they sell on the other consoles. And the main reason for that, as far as I'm concerned, is competition. Sony's first party and Microsoft's first party, if that even exists, they don't put out the volume or the quality of software on their own hardware. So you have free reign on those boxes. You have free reign on the Sony box to sell well and do well. And the same thing with the Microsoft box. You have free reign. You're not competing with anybody most of the year. And that's not the case on Nintendo's consoles, because Nintendo obviously makes software, and great software at that. So you have that. So that there is a competition thing there. And also the Nintendo gamer is just used to a quality piece of software. Like, this isn't about if the game is like, AAA or great or stuff. This is about the actual functioning of the game itself, crashing and breaking and just being a bad control, any of that stuff. You can say what you will about the appeal of the game as a non-Nintendo fan, but the quality of how the game is crafted and how it works and how it plays is very top notch on the Nintendo side. And so the Nintendo fan is used to quality software that works and that plays well, regardless of, like I said, the appeal. And so when we see these third parties who, the mainstream of gamers are used to, where they pump out games that aren't complete day one, that aren't fully functioning games, that don't have a ton of bugs, that need patches all the time, we tend to stray away from that. And that's not our fault, because we have a higher standard of software and expectancy of these games. And that is just how we are groomed. We were groomed on that. We were groomed to expect the big game to work and to be fun. And if you don't offer that, then it's going to be hard to compete with somebody who's used to that. And so you have to step your game up on the Nintendo console. Or at least that's how a lot or some of those companies feel. So you always hear them say stuff like, we want to make a certain type of game for the Nintendo console. And I used to get annoyed by that, but now I kind of understand it, because it's like, you're going to have to cater to the Nintendo fans' tastes to do well or decent on the Nintendo console. If you just bring over your game that and it's in the same state it is from the other consoles, and the Nintendo fan not being used to that, it's not going to be on our radar. And a lot of Nintendo fans will just say, bring those games over. And a lot of times I agree, but I just think the industry just needs to step its game up and stop making the fans beta testers. Put out quality games. And that was one of the things that burned bridges with Nintendo and third party is because they had the quality control back then. Back in the day on the NES, and I don't know if this was the case on the Super Nintendo, but at least on the NES, Nintendo had a rule of where you can only put out, as a company, you can only pull out like, what, 2 or 3 games per year, something like that. And that really ticked off third parties because they wanted to put out more stuff. And so I remember like Konami was one of the third parties that wanted to put out more games. And so they created like the Ultra brand. I think it was Ultra, which they put out other games on. If I'm not mistaken, Metal Gear was under Ultra and not Konami back on the NES. I'll put up a graphic if I'm right about that, or if I'm wrong about it. And I remember some other games, like there was like a Jeep game, like a Jeep shooting game. So they would make form these smaller little companies just to put out more games on the NES. And, like I said, Nintendo had a lot of strict rules that pissed off third parties, but to me, it was for the better. Obviously, in some cases, it was for Nintendo's benefit, but I think for the, Nintendo was looking at, remember, Nintendo came in where the industry was pretty much dead. And, Atari, that was one of the things that killed Atari, is just all this crap that used to come out on the Atari system, because it was just like it was a free-for-all. And so it was just a bunch of junk that came out, and people stopped buying, and the industry, at least in North America, pretty much just evaporated. So when Nintendo came in, they came in with kid gloves. They wanted to make sure that people were putting out quality, so they held them down to 3 games. So make 3 solid games per year and focus on those and make them good. And so that's why they had those rules. So a lot of the things that burned bridges with third parties back in the day, as far as Nintendo's concerned, I felt like it was justified. I felt like they wanted to make sure people were putting out quality. And that's, one of the reasons why the industry treats Nintendo differently, because Nintendo doesn't just say, all right, you can do whatever you want, whenever you want on our console. There are rules, and these folks don't like rules. And, you can be mad at Nintendo for that, but I actually applaud them for that. I think that's a good thing. I think if every company did that, we get more quality games, we get more variety, even with those rules in place. Because it would force these companies to be more creative. So they're just pumping out stuff that, isn't finished. So I think I kind of went off in a different direction there, but I just wanted to talk about quickly the GameCube. Even though it didn't sell well, or didn't sell that great, it didn't sell comparable to Sony, the PlayStation 2 or anything, the games on it sold really well. And especially third-party games. Third-party games sold really well. I did a count. I started counting VG charts, and VG charts usually will be under and not over. So I thought it was a good barometer for this, especially for a console that's that old. That, especially in the 7th gen, a million units sold was a lot of money. That was good. That was good money there. So for a console that had such a small install base, third parties did really well on GameCube. And same thing for Wii. When the Wii came out, obviously it wasn't comparable. It wasn't an HD console. So you had either really bare bone ports, not bare bones in content all the time, but just visually. Call of Duty comes to mind. The content was pretty much all there, but visually, obviously, it didn't stand up. But I think it was around 72 Wii third-party games, I should say, sold over 1 million copies. And again, if you're making a game for the Wii during the HD era, it was way cheaper because you didn't have, the graphics and all that stuff, and the size and all that stuff was way less. So the costs were way down. So if you were selling 1 million copies of a Wii game, you did really well as a third party. So this premise of Nintendo fans don't buy third party games is not true. they don't buy into the volume of a Xbox or a PlayStation, because Nintendo gives competition, and really good competition. And so the Nintendo game does do better. And I think third parties just don't like the fact that they look at the Nintendo console and they haven't cracked the top 10 as far as units sold on their software, but they're probably in the top 20, and that's just not good enough for them. I think, you know, 1 million units sold. They want GTA numbers on a Nintendo console, and that's just not gonna happen. At least not yet. I think a Nintendo console will have to sell, you know, upwards of 100 million, and have, you know, the power, at least the power of the Switch, and to be able to sell anything like that. So yeah, that's my take on it. Let me know what you guys think. Do you agree, disagree? Obviously, if you're a Nintendo fan, you probably feel like we do buy third-party games. I mean, if I didn't, my games collection would be pretty porous if I only bought Nintendo first-party games. So it just doesn't make any sense. I just feel like third parties wish they could do, you know, comparable numbers on a Nintendo console that they do on the Xbox or the PlayStation box. So yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Thank you for watching and listening as always, and I'll see you fools next time. Peace out.
Oh yeah, one more thing. Play Nintendo, fools.